given the success that you had in the primary in the spring, what have you been doing since then to try to better familiarize yourself with county government operations or the Home Rule Charter, or just to prepare for this job?
Well, I have reread the charter, which I had done before the primary, but I've read it a little more closely. I've also tried to find out as much as I can about the current operations of the county, and I've been attending the transition committee meetings when I can.
And that was my next question, actually, those transition committee meetings. Based on what you've seen when you've been there, what you might have read or heard about, do you have a sense of whether that committee's on pace with its many responsibilities so that there will be a smooth transition in December, January? Or do you have any concerns about where certain items might be right now?
I think they're really doing a pretty good job of keeping everything up to speed as far as what needs to be done. I do think that when the actual council, the elected council, becomes involved on November 9th, that the council members are probably going to want to go back and take a look at what's been done already and make sure that no bounds were overstepped or anything like that and nothing was overlooked. I know there have been some issues about personnel items and things being discussed in executive session, but I think that really the transition committee is just trying to be a little bit proactive and not miss anything. I don't think that anything that they've done is something that is not going to be re-examined by the council once they get involved.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Would you be anxious to re-examine anything in particular? I mean, do you have a particular concern, or do you just think as part of due process, it's the council's responsibility to examine what's...
Well, I do think it's the council's responsibility, I certainly hope I'm one of them, to examine everything that's been done. And I don't really anticipate that there are going to be a lot of things that need to be completely reopened. I do think that one of the things that needs to be done is that the council manager applicants all need to be reviewed. And not to say that we're not taking what the consultant is offering as suggestions seriously, but I do think that the council members who are elected by the people need to step up to that and take a look at everyone that's presented themselves.
If elected to serve on the council, how much time do you expect to dedicate to that post?
Well, as has been said in a couple of the forums that we've just recently had, it is a part-time position. I don't think I could really put a time limit on it because I think that the people who are running, and myself included, are committing ourselves to doing what we need to do. And I know one of the things that I said last night is that at the forum for the Downtown Residents Association is that what we learn when we work is that we find out what we need to do and we work at it until we get the job done. So I don't think I could put a time limit on, I just don't think I could say that. I think we put in the time that needs to be put in to get things done and make sure that things are done well.
Mm-hmm. If elected, you're serving as part of that group. Do you think it's appropriate for the council members to be in the courthouse daily or weekly? Or do you think there should be another way to allow access for the public to reach them, for county workers to reach them?
Well, I do think that there should be access. Do I think that we should be in the courthouse daily? No, I don't. And I mean, I think one of the analogies, and it's not a perfect analogy, but one of the analogies is that of a school board. We have a school board, and I work in a school system. Our school board members do not come into the school on a daily basis. They're not involved in the day-to-day operations, and that's clear in the charter. The council is not to be involved in the day-to-day operations. That's really interfering in the running of the county, and I think that's what we've seen in the past. People involving themselves maybe inappropriately in the operations of some things that happen in the county. But I do think that there needs to be a way for people to have access to, to get some input into it. I wouldn't think it's unreasonable to give every council member an email address so that people with internet access can email them, have a phone line or something like that, some way that people could reach them. And certainly good old pen and paper with writing a letter. We see letters to the editor. We could certainly see letters to the county council.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If elected to the council, would you vote to approve the hiring or the appointment of a relative to a county authority, a board, or a commission?
One of my relatives? No, I'm an only child for one thing, which I think is a plus, but no, I don't think it's appropriate. I mean, I think that there are lots of qualified people, and I certainly think that we could find someone who is qualified to hold any position before looking at relatives.
Do you have a skill set or an area of expertise that you feel you would bring to this body, be it, budgeting or finance or legal background or dealing with negotiations? Those are just examples. What you have.
Well, I think I do have a problem-solving ability. I think I have an ability to kind of cut to the chase of, or see exactly what the problem is. I think I do have a skill in that. I have had a leadership position among my colleagues for several years, and I've resolved quite a few issues in that reasonably, I believe. I mean, there's no bloodshed on the west side of the river at the moment. So I think that I do bring that. I also do have, I've always had a kind of a knack for mathematics and things like that. I'm not a financial manager. I don't have an MBA or anything like that. But I think I do have an ability to look at numbers and understand what they mean. I don't have to have everything explained to me. And I think more than anything, I have an ability to ask questions when I don't understand and keep asking them until I get a good understanding.
What is the leadership position to which you referred to? You said among your colleagues?
I've been an officer in the Wyoming Valley West Education Association since 2004. I was the treasurer, actually. I was the treasurer of the association, and I've been the president of the association for the last 5 years. And I've settled 2 contracts.
How is that going to, with the amount of work that this job will entail and your work on the school, how are they going to mesh? How is it going to find the time?
I don't really see them as conflicting. As I said, well, one of the things I just said is that I've settled a contract. We just recently settled a contract. And that was somewhat time-consuming, but I do other things too. I'm a church organist, and I'm a performing musician. One of my other skills, I guess, is multitasking and finding the ability to balance my time. And I'll certainly make the time for a position, for whatever responsibilities there are as a county council member.
One of the most difficult tasks for this group right off the bat is probably going to be creating a budget, a workable spending plan of some sort. Do you have ideas where specifically there might be areas to trim costs? Or on the flip side of that, do you think the county might be missing out anywhere on opportunities for new revenues?
Well, it's hard to say until you have, all of the things in front of you. And I think that the council as a whole is going to be directing the manager to try to find places to trim. I'm sure that there are places that can be trimmed. As to exactly what they are, I don't think I could say that at the moment. In terms of sources of revenue, I think trying to create an atmosphere that attracts businesses to the community is going to help. But there are other things that we would expect the manager to be able to help us to identify.
What might go into creating that atmosphere you refer to, something that's going to attract businesses? Is that the responsibility of the tourism authority of the tourism board of the council, or economic development, or is it what role would the council play, I guess, in doing that type of a task?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, we have to create an atmosphere of confidence in the county government, because I don't see anyone wanting to come into a county where, where we're known for not proceeding in an ethical manner. And I think we've rounded the corner. I think that we're heading in the right direction as far as that goes. So I think that's the first thing. I think making sure that everything is operated above board in terms of county management will help a lot. And what we want to really attract are businesses that are going to offer better than minimum wage jobs, so that we get some real growth in the county. There are, and again, I would expect that the county manager, being an experienced, we're hoping that we'll have someone who's got some experience, will be able to offer some kinds of ideas for help in those areas.
What do you think is Luzerne County's responsibility in funding outside organizations, things such as public libraries?
The county to fund libraries and things like that?
What responsibility, if any, should Luzerne County have in that kind of?
Well, I do think those are important things in the community, and I think that we certainly should play a role in supporting them. I know that, libraries and other things like that, they run fundraisers and other such events, but I think the county needs to, that's a real plus to the county to have public libraries and public transportation, things like that available to people.
And a question on the subject of the county's workforce. What do you think would make a reasonable fringe benefit package for county employees? Things such as number of sick days, number of vacation days?
Well, I don't know. Again, I don't know that you can say what's reasonable until you look at what they have. And I certainly think that's a matter for negotiations. And everybody's benefits, when you look at people's compensation packages, I think everything is viewed as a package. And so, it's always a balance of things. In my own negotiations, what I've always said is that we look at everything as a package. So you certainly don't want to take away from people what they have. You want to try to make sure that things are offered that are equitable and that are in line with today's economic climate, too. I don't think I could be specific about that, really, at this point.
I think it comes up because taxpayers, people who write letters to the editor, don't maybe see the whole package, but they see that when county employees leave, they get a payout of accumulated sick days. And we were asking that in the first, how much do you think that, how much, should that be continued? Should people be allowed to accumulate sick days, and how many, that sort of thing. And again, I understand.
Well,
that's the framework
and
we're asking.
I understand that, but you have to understand the framework that I'm coming from, because according to the school code, we are entitled to accumulate sick days. Teachers have done that for years. We do accumulate sick days, and we just recently had someone retire who had over 400 sick days, but it was a 46-year career, and what that says is that this is someone who came to work. I think that there's you can say, oh, this person accumulated their sick days. To me, what that says is this person didn't abuse their sick leave. They came to work. They showed up and they did their job every day.
If elected to the council, would you bring a particular issue in front of the body? Is there something you feel particularly passionate about? We hear some of the candidates talking about natural gas issues or property tax issues. Or do you think it's just more appropriate for the council manager to bring the issues in front of the group?
I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix of both. I think the manager certainly should be able to bring issues. I think that's what they're called to do, to bring issues to the council. But I also think that the council members have a responsibility to look at some things like the possibility of economic relief for senior citizens and for really for the taxpayers in general, to make sure that assessment appeals are open to people who need help with that. To make sure that things like, law enforcement in our different areas of our county is relatively equitable, because there are areas of our county that don't have any access to law enforcement bodies in those, in their community, and so they depend on the response of, from 911 or something like that. I think that there are certain issues that council members will feel strongly about, and they have the right to bring those to the rest of the council members and to the manager for examination.
If elected, would you want to serve as the group's chairperson, or if not, what characteristics would you be looking for in a chair?
I'm not looking to serve as the chair. I mean, if somebody asked me to consider it, I'd think about it, but it's, I think that the chairperson needs to be someone who can run a meeting well, and who can and when I say run a meeting well, I guess I mean, control the different kinds of personalities and not let anyone get out of hand. In a body of 11 people, it's likely that you're going to have some strong personalities. And so I think it's a balancing act, and you want someone who's a relatively calm and a reasonable person themselves.
Well, there's always a certain level of media interest in the county's operations, and we think that's going to be amplified in January with the new group coming in. What do you think is the appropriate way for this council to communicate with not just the Times Leader, but all the news outlets in the area? Do you think there's a need for us a designated spokesperson, or do you think every council member should be communicating with the media?
Don't you cover the council meetings? Wouldn't you cover the council meetings?
Certainly.
Yeah, I would think that that's a pretty appropriate forum. I mean, I think the nature of media is to observe what's there and report it. Press releases and things like that would certainly, I think they would come from the county manager's office, or whatever office in the county would handle those things. But I would think that the actual operations of the county should be observed by the media. I would expect that the council meetings are going to be open to the public. So I think that the people in the media have a responsibility to your readers to report those things.
What are you doing in these final weeks as far as your campaign? What's your strategy? Is it a door-to-door thing? Are you having events or? Well,
I'm part of the Working Families team, and so we have had a couple small get-togethers in different areas of the county. We're just trying to talk to as many people as possible. I don't think we have any grand strategy. I don't have certainly any grand strategy. I've got a couple things coming up in the next few weeks myself, and you ran an article on the front page or on the arts section about one of the things I'm involved in the other day. And so, I mean, it's going to be part of my life for the next 3 weeks, and I hope it's going to be part of my life after that. But, I'm going to prioritize my life around it. I'm not all about running for office. I guess I'm not a great politician. I hope to be a good public servant if I'm elected.
How much are you spending on your campaign?
How much am I personally spending? I think.
How much are you raising money?
Well, not really. There have been some donations that have come in, but I mean, I'm not out recruiting donations from people. We had a PAC fund that had some money left over, and so we use that to help with printing of some cards and things like that. But there's no big effort to raise a lot of money.
So are you relying solely on the PAC fund? Are you doing any financing of it yourself?
Myself, I've donated, I've made some donations to the Democratic Party that I think are helping all the Democratic candidates, and not just the county council candidates, but the judges, and we're supporting all of them. Beyond that, no.
So altogether, your campaign spending, you anticipate closer to $1,000, $10,000, $100?
Well, I'm not really running an independent campaign. As I said, I'm part of the Working Families team, and so the publicity that I have, the cards and things like that, that's being paid for by the PAC fund.
So for your campaign report, it's any monies you get would be coming from the PAC? I guess we're asking everybody this, so we want to be consistent. That's why.
I haven't actually received any money personally. Okay, I don't know how else to say that. Any donations that have been made for me, I'm really not aware of them, but they're being handled by the PAC fund.
The Working Families group has attracted some criticism in letters to the editor and so forth. Do you feel there are misconceptions about that group, what its objectives are?
Well, I think that there may be misconceptions. I did have a lady ask me a really good question last night, and she said, how do you balance your unionism? How do you expect to balance your unionism, if I can put that in quotation marks, against the idea that you're going to have to work with negotiated county contracts? Unionism, and I think this really applies to the whole idea of the Working Families ticket, but unionism is much more than a contract. What it is giving the people who work a voice in their workplace. And to me, what I'm proposing to do as a county council member is an extension of that. I'm proposing to give the average taxpayer a voice in their county government. And I find that what I do as the president of the Teachers Association is bring concerns to the administration. There's much more involved than putting your signature on a contract. It's listening to the concerns of the people that you work with and taking those concerns forward and trying to do something about them and resolve issues. And that's what I see really as the role of the county council on a bigger scale than I deal with in a union. I think that's one of the pluses of where I'm coming from. One of the other things that I said, and I think I said this last night, was that Working Families, to me, is exactly what it says. It's the values that you learn when you work, and it's the values that you learn in your family. And that's really, I think that's what the four of us stand for. I think that's what the team is all about. I am supported by that whole Working Families group. We've supported each other. We find that we have a lot in common. And I'm supported, and I was encouraged to run by the people that I work with. If I didn't have that encouragement, I wouldn't have bothered to fill out an application to run, to be on the primary ballot.
Were you comfortable with the campaign in the spring and the way the race was conducted in the spring? Did you have any concerns then or now about the way some candidates are conducting themselves? Or did you think it was fairly quiet?
Well, I didn't really see much of a problem, to be honest. You know, I mean, everybody does what they think is right, you know? And I think that the race in the spring was just so wide open. When you have 33 candidates, I mean, anything was really possible. And I don't really see, I don't see any candidate really acting in an irrational manner or you know, being unreasonable. I think we all have differences of opinion about some things. We all have different ways, as you can see in the forums. We have different ways of expressing ourselves, and you know, people. That's what makes us unique, and that's really what I think what America is about in a larger sense. You know, we all have differences, and so we're all bringing something to the table. I don't think I could be critical of another candidate.
Other questions? Anything we didn't hit on? Are you satisfied with this endorsement interview, that we've asked the appropriate questions and you've had ample time to answer?
I think so, yes.
Is there anything that we did not ask you about that you particularly want to mention, or anything that you want to emphasize that maybe we only got a chance to touch on quickly?
I can't think of anything.